She described the man standing in her doorway. She said his mouth was sewn shut. She said he was smiling anyway. The address she gave was a lot that had been empty for 20 years. The house burned down in 1987, and the line she called from had been disconnected the same night it burned. Before we talk about what came through that line, we need to talk about the person who picked it up. Marcus Hale had been working the overnight dispatch desk at Sentinel Security Solutions for 11 years by the time this happened. 11 years of false alarms, drunk dialers, teenagers testing the emergency line from payphones outside convenience stores at 2 in the morning. He had heard everything, he thought. Sentinel operated a private dispatch service for residential clients across 3 counties. Think of it like a home security monitoring company, but smaller, less regulated, the kind of company that exists in the gaps between official emergency services and the people who can afford to fill those gaps. On the night in question, a Wednesday in mid-November, 2003, Marcus was alone in the dispatch center. His colleague had called in sick. Standard protocol for solo nights: log every call, forward anything requiring a police response, and otherwise manage it yourself. At 3:24 in the morning, a call came through the general intake line, not the emergency line, not the direct client line. The general line, the one listed in the phone book, the one that mostly caught wrong numbers and sales calls, and people who had dialed 9 digits out of 10 and hit the wrong button for the last one. Marcus almost didn't pick up. He told investigators later, and this detail matters, that he almost let it ring out. He was in the middle of logging an earlier call. His coffee was getting cold. It was, by every available measure, an ordinary night. But he picked up. What he heard first wasn't a voice. It was the sound of a room, a space with walls and air and distance, a house, and beneath that, barely there, like something you catch at the edge of hearing and then convince yourself you imagined, the faint, rhythmic sound of breathing. Then the voice came. It was a young woman. She was calm in the way that people sometimes go calm when they are past the edge of terror and into something beyond it, that cold, flat register that the body shifts into when screaming has stopped working. She said, "Hello? Is someone there? There's a man. He's in my house. He came through the window in the back hall. Please, he's outside my room now. He has his mouth. I can't explain his mouth. Please." And then the static took her. Investigators who reviewed the recording later noted something immediately wrong with it. The audio quality, the texture of the call, was consistent with recordings made on analog landline infrastructure, the kind that hadn't been standard in that region since the early 1990s. The line had a particular resonance, a particular hollow warmth that digital transmission doesn't produce, as if the call wasn't traveling through the modern telephone network at all, as if it was coming from somewhere older. But that wasn't the detail that broke Marcus Hale open. It was the address she gave. Marcus ran it through the system the way he always did. Standard protocol, cross-reference the client database, flag the address, route the response. The system found no active client at that address. What it did find stopped him cold. 441 Brennan Mill Road had been flagged by Sentinel's predecessor company, a firm called Orchard Watch Security, as a site of unexplained repeated alarm triggers. The flags ran from 1984 to 1987. They stopped in October 1987. The same month the house burned down. But here is what made Marcus Hale's hands begin to shake at 3:24 in the morning, in a room full of monitors and dead phones. The girl on the call had described the layout of the house in extraordinary detail. The window in the back hall, the position of her room, the staircase she was afraid to run toward, because the man was somewhere between her and the stairs. Marcus had the archived Orchard Watch file open on his secondary monitor. Every detail she gave matched the floor plan filed during the original security installation in 1984. And then, barely audible beneath the static at the very end of the call, almost not there at all, she said, "Tell them Delia heard him come back. The fire at 441 Brennan Mill Road killed one person, a 17-year-old girl named Delia Marsh. Delia lived in the house with her mother and her mother's boyfriend, a man named Garrett Poole. The fire was ruled accidental, faulty wiring in the back hall. But the case had never sat comfortably with investigators. There were details that didn't fit, details that were quietly filed away in the late 1980s and mostly forgotten. The fire started, according to the official report, in the back hall, the same location Delia described to Marcus Hale 16 years after her death. Investigators at the time noted that Delia's body had been found not near a window or an exit, not where you'd expect to find someone trying to escape a fire. She was found in her room, at her desk, facing the door, as if she had sat down and waited, or as if something had prevented her from leaving. The coroner's report contained a handwritten note in the margin, faded but readable when the file was later obtained through a Freedom of Information request. The note read, "Ligature marks inconsistent with fire. Not explained. Garrett Poole was questioned. He was cooperative. He had an alibi. He'd been at a bar 12 miles away, and 3 witnesses confirmed it. He moved away from the county within a month of the fire. No further contact with investigators. His whereabouts after 1988 remain officially unknown. Nobody connected any of this to the phone call Marcus Hale received in 2003. Not at first. Marcus himself didn't make the connection until he pulled the archived file and saw the name. Delia Marsh. 27 minutes after the first call ended, the line rang again. Marcus picked up immediately this time. There was no voice. There was no static. There was breathing. Slow, even. Not panicked. Not distressed. Investigative audio analysts who later examined the recording described it as, and this is their language, not mine, metronomic, like something maintaining a rhythm rather than something alive experiencing breath. Marcus said nothing for 11 seconds. He counted. He told investigators later that he counted because he needed something to hold on to, something real. And then Marcus made a mistake. He said her name. The breathing stopped. Dead silence for 3 full seconds. And then, a sound that analysts could never fully explain, a sound described in the official incident report as consistent with a window breaking from the inside of a nearby room. Marcus Hale was alone in the building. The nearest window to his dispatch desk was the frosted pane on the east wall of the operations room. He heard it crack. He dropped the phone and ran. He didn't look at the east wall on his way out. He told investigators later that he was afraid of what looking would have meant. When his supervisor arrived the following morning, they found the frosted pane cracked from the bottom corner to the center, a clean, pressurized fracture, as if something had leaned against it from the other side. Marcus Hale was in the parking lot in November, without his coat, waiting for someone else to go in first. Marcus Hale was not the first person to receive a call from 441 Brennan Mill Road. He was the third. The first documented incident occurred in 1994. A woman working a late shift at a now-defunct alarm monitoring company received a call from an address that, when investigated, turned out to be a vacant lot, but one with a fire history. A residential fire in 1991. 1 fatality. a young woman. The caller described a man in the doorway. She described his mouth. The second incident, 1998. A night shift phone operator at a hotel received a transferred call with no origin number. The caller was a young woman reporting a break-in. She described a man. She described, and the operator wrote this down in the incident report, which is how we know, the way his lips were held together, like they'd been sealed. Same description, different caller, different location, different year, same mouth. In both prior cases, the person who received the call reported something anomalous occurring in their physical space in the hours that followed. Unexplained sounds, objects displaced. One reported seeing a reflection in a dark monitor that didn't match the room she was sitting in. Neither prior case involved property damage. Marcus Hales did, which suggests, and paranormal researchers who've studied this case have argued this point extensively, that whatever is using these calls as a mechanism is getting closer to something, getting better at something, as if it's practicing. The working theory, and I want to be clear that this remains a theory, is not that Delia Marsh is haunting a phone line. The theory is that Delia Marsh is bait. In 2006, 3 years after Marcus Hales' incident, an investigative journalist named Renata Solis began compiling what she called a thread, her word, connecting the 3 dispatcher cases. She found something that local investigators in 1987 had not found, or had not looked for. Garrett Poole, the man questioned in the Brennan mill fire, had prior addresses connected to 2 other residential fires, both in the decade before 1987, both involving young female occupants, both ruled accidental. He was never charged with anything. Garrett Poole died in 2001 of a house fire. The report noted that the damage was concentrated in the back hall. His body was found in the bedroom, at the desk, facing the door. The coroner's report included a detail that was never released publicly. Renata Solis obtained it through a Freedom of Information request. A single line, highlighted. Victim's lips, evidence of post-mortem trauma inconsistent with fire. Cause undetermined. His lips. It appears that whatever Delia Marsh has been calling toward, whatever she has been drawing across phone lines and through dispatch centers and toward anyone who picks up and says her name, eventually reached the man it was looking for. The calls stopped after Poole's death, for 2 years, and then they started again. The call from 441 Brennan Mill Road was last documented in 2019. The recipient's name has not been released. They have not spoken about it publicly. The official incident report lists the origin number as disconnected, unable to trace. If you've worked nights, if you've ever picked up a line and heard something in the silence that you couldn't name, you know the feeling Marcus described. That moment where the quiet has weight, where you're not sure whether to speak or hang up. Let us know in the comments if you've experienced something like this. Or actually, maybe just leave the phone alone tonight. Some secrets are meant to be kept, but we've already pulled them into the light. If you're ready for another narrative from the edge of reality, the next one is waiting for you right here.